on Goblin Reddit. Today's story is...
My stepmother seemed to hate me for no reason, until she orchestrated a plan to have me arrested that destroyed my relationship with my father for 4 years. To give some context, I am 22 years old, female, and I graduated from college about a month ago. Since then, I have been living temporarily with my father and my stepmother. My father understands perfectly well that this arrangement is only temporary, as he knows that I don't get along with my stepmother and I have no intention of staying long-term. For her part, Veronica, my stepmother, doesn't feel much affection for me either, so this situation suits us both for now. My biological mother died when I was 9 years old. When I turned 17, my father started a relationship with Veronica, and by the time I turned 20, they had already gotten married. From the beginning, I could tell that she didn't like me. I don't understand what kind of person in their 30s decides to dislike a teenager for no apparent reason, but that's how Veronica was. Even though she was considerably older than me, and there was really no reason for her to dislike me, she seemed to have a strange attitude towards me from the very beginning. I tried to be friendly with her, but when I realized that my efforts were not being reciprocated or appreciated, I stopped trying and started ignoring her. We shared a house until I left for university, and living together was not at all pleasant because she was constantly looking for ways to annoy me. Naturally, I was not keen on the idea of staying here again, but until I find a job and can afford to pay rent, this is my only option. I had resigned myself to the situation, but during this last month it seemed that Veronica had become much more hostile than before. During my time at university, I would come home during the holidays or occasionally at weekends, but only for short periods, and during that time she behaved tolerably because we basically ignored each other. However, I guess she is now aware that I am not here just for a few days, and for some reason, she finds it impossible to deal with this situation. So for the last few weeks, since I got back, she has made it her personal mission to constantly irritate me. We have been arguing nonstop. The ironic thing is that every time my father comes home she transforms and acts like the most attentive stepmother in the world. That's why I know there's no point in telling my father any of this, as he would probably think I was exaggerating. Besides, I don't want to stoop to her level and give her that satisfaction, so I've chosen to keep quiet about all this. But recently she did something completely crazy that I think goes beyond all limits. I have decided to press charges against her. Now my father argues that I was the one who provoked her, so I shouldn't take this matter so far. At the moment, I don't know what to think. Basically, about 5 days ago, we had an argument over something insignificant. My father was at work, and I was sending job applications online, so I was busy all morning. While I was filling in an application, Veronica burst into my room and started complaining to me about how much of my laundry she had had to wash. She told me that it was too much work, and that from now on she wanted me to take care of my own clothes. Apparently, I rolled my eyes before saying that I would do it, and she decided to make a big deal out of that gesture. She told me that this was her house, so I couldn't behave that way towards her. I replied that this was actually my father's house, and that she had done nothing in her entire life to deserve to live here, except find the wealthiest man she could and marry him so she could stay at home doing nothing. She was being petty, and I simply responded in the same way. Things escalated quite a lot. After a while she left, and I thought the matter was over, but that afternoon, after my father returned from work, she started shouting that one of her new designer handbags, worth $25,000, had disappeared, and she began to accuse me of stealing it. She told me that I was not yet employed, and that she was sure that I had something to do with it. Surprisingly, my father, instead of defending me, took her side in this matter and said that if I really hadn't taken anything, then I should support the search instead of getting defensive. It was really frustrating. After a few minutes of heated discussion between us, she simply decided to call the police. It was extremely humiliating for me, but they searched the whole house, including my room and my personal belongings. Everything was turned upside down, but they couldn't find anything. In the end, the bag was reported stolen, but they left me alone because I obviously didn't have it in my possession, and there was no evidence to the contrary. That night, due to the humiliation I had suffered, I decided to leave, and since then I have been staying with a friend. I didn't speak to my father, and he didn't try to stop me when I left either, so I understood what his priorities were. But 2 days ago, she decided to call me in tears and confessed that Veronica had admitted that she had taken the bag herself and had kept it at a friend's house a few days earlier with the specific purpose of incriminating me. She had revealed the truth to her after he had caught her talking on the phone to this friend, and they had been discussing what had happened a few days earlier. Apparently, he had overheard her expressing how happy she was that I had finally left. My father had decided to surprise her by coming home early from work, but it was he who ended up getting a big surprise. He told me he was truly sorry, and that at that moment he and Veronica were not speaking, but he wanted to make it up to me by inviting me to come home and apologizing in person. I replied that there was no way I could come back so soon, especially until Veronica left, and I also informed him that now that I knew the truth, I was going to report her and press charges against her for trying to frame me. She was furious, but he tried to calm me down and said he wanted to resolve this as a family and that pressing charges against her would only make the situation worse to an irreparable point. It wasn't what he wanted. He wanted us to get along, so he basically begged me not to press charges, but I'm going to go ahead anyway because what she did was not just mean, but dangerous, and I can't believe she went to such lengths just to get me out of the house. There is something seriously worrying about that woman, and if my father can't see it, and if he still hopes that at some point we will get along and sort things out, then there is something worrying about him too. The only reason I'm having doubts is because the friend I'm staying with told me that if I do this, I can say goodbye to any possibility of reconciling with my father in the future, because it's very clear that he loves Veronica for whatever reason, and if I press charges against her, he will probably never be able to forgive me and I will lose him forever. He also reminded me that my father had sacrificed a lot for me in the past because after my mother passed away, he practically raised me alone without the help of any other family member. No one was willing to support us, neither financially nor emotionally. He had to make numerous sacrifices, and she just wanted him to reflect on that before making any decisions. That's why I'm a bit undecided about what I want to do, although I'm convinced that there's nothing wrong with pressing charges against Veronica. It's my relationship with my father that worries me. So, would I be the ogre if I decided to press charges against my stepmother for trying to frame me? Addition. Well, since many people have been asking, I didn't mention it because I didn't think it was relevant, but my father is about 48 years old and Veronica is currently 37. They have an 11-year age difference, and Veronica used to work when she met my father, but she quit after marrying him. That's why I made that comment about her that I mentioned in my post. And I don't think I said anything wrong because I know exactly what kind of woman she is. Even if my father can't see it, I can. And if I had known this would be her behavior after the marriage, I would have warned my father from the beginning. Update 1. Hi everyone. I've decided to go ahead and press charges against Veronica. Whatever relationship I have with my father, I can't let it interfere with what needs to be done. I respect him. I love him and I admire everything he's done for me. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let Veronica get away with what she did, because her behavior was not normal at all. And I hope that one day he can understand my point of view. Honestly, I think he should have foreseen it, because he was the one who called me and told me the truth. If he didn't want me to take action against her, then he shouldn't have called me or said anything to me. I think that's precisely why he didn't want me to press charges, because he knew he was the one who informed on me and he would feel very guilty if anything went wrong. But now it's too late. Things will definitely get complicated for Veronica. And I'm not going to let this situation pass me by. I've already spoken to some friends, and they've put me in touch with a good lawyer. It will cost me, but I think it will be worth it. I have some money that my mother left me. I didn't want to use it because I considered it my savings, and I intended to keep it for future emergencies. But I'm currently in talks with a company, and I'm going to start next month if all goes well. They offer a good salary, and I think this is something worth taking a risk for because Veronica needs to learn a lesson and must realize that what she did was wrong. So I'm suing her for malicious accusation, and she'll simply have to compensate me for damages if I win. There is also the possibility of resolving this out of court, which I am also willing to accept, but I just want her to understand that she is lost. Maybe a lot of people will consider all this petty and vindictive, but I don't care. This is important to me, and I'm going to follow through with it. Update 2. Well, over the last 2 weeks I have kept in touch with my father. He kept trying to get in touch with me. He reached out several times, but I didn't respond because I knew I was going against what he wanted, and I didn't want to argue with him. I knew that if I talked to him, he would only try to convince me otherwise, and I didn't want that either. So I just said nothing. I continued with the legal proceedings. I spoke to the lawyer. I carried out all the necessary formalities, and 2 days ago Veronica was finally served with the lawsuit. That same afternoon, my father started texting me again. Even though over the last few days, he too had chosen to remain silent because I was clearly not responding. I had no intention of talking to him. But once Veronica received the lawsuit, that didn't matter anymore. She started flooding my phone with messages and calls, and she kept telling me how disappointed she was, that this wasn't how she wanted me to handle things, and that it was crazy that I wouldn't even consider her point of view. She told me that I was being incredibly selfish and petty, and that this wasn't how she raised me. Finally, I replied and told her that she had done a good job raising me, but now it was my decision whether I wanted to face something in a vengeful way or if I preferred to handle it with forgiveness. And I had chosen not to forgive Veronica for a very simple reason. She showed no remorse. So how could I forgive someone who showed no remorse for anything they had done? It didn't make sense. So I had to take another path, and I refused to apologize for it because, according to the education I had been given, it had also taught me not to tolerate injustice from anyone. I told him that he can't be angry because I'm behaving exactly as he taught me. I can't act according to his convenience, and he needs to realize that. I may be his daughter, and I am extremely grateful for everything he has done for me. But ultimately, I am also an independent person, and he needs to respect that. Besides, if you really think I can forgive Veronica after what she did, you're completely wrong. She doesn't deserve my forgiveness. She didn't even ask for it, and over the last few days, it's not as if she hasn't had the time or opportunity to apologize to me and at least try to make amends. She had enough time, but she deliberately chose to remain silent because she knew my father was going to take her side in this matter. Although he was angry, he was still backing her, and that annoyed me even more. Because if he really wanted things to be resolved peacefully, without involving lawyers, then he could have easily spoken to her too, and in fact I think that's what really should have happened. This was all her fault, he knew it. She had confessed it to him herself, and if he hadn't accidentally overheard the conversation with her friend, he probably wouldn't even have been able to discover the truth. Because she wouldn't have revealed it to him on her own initiative, it needed to be discovered, and I'm lucky they caught her so soon. I was really lucky that she was careless enough to talk out loud on the phone and my father heard her, because otherwise he probably wouldn't even have believed in my innocence, and they would have investigated me for no reason. She did all this just to get me out of their lives, and yet he expects me to just forgive her, move on, and act as if nothing had happened. I don't think that's fair to me, and I don't even think it makes sense, because if it had happened to him, he wouldn't have behaved in the same way that he expects me to behave. And most importantly, if he wanted things to be resolved, he should have spoken to her. He should have made her apologize to me, and then I could have considered forgiving her, but he didn't. She just kept trying to pressure me into forgetting it, as if somehow this was my responsibility, and that doesn't make any sense to me. He is being extremely biased, and I can see that his priorities have changed. In the past I may have been his priority, but now I definitely am not. Now everything revolves around Veronica, and he just wants to please her and protect her interests. He doesn't seem to care what I'm going through, and that's very evident right now. It's painful. I need him to understand that, so I sent him a message explaining all this, and then he didn't even bother to reply. I guess he just didn't have anything to say in his defense, because what I said was completely true and he knows it. He'd be a fool not to recognize that, but oh well. I said everything I had to say, and if after that he doesn't understand what I mean, then it's really not my problem. I'm not going to back down. I know I'm doing the right thing, and Veronica deserves exactly this, and I hope she gets in a lot of trouble for this because what she did to me wasn't fair. It was upsetting, and I'm really relieved that she got found out when she did. Update 3. Hi everyone. I'm really sorry I haven't updated for so long, but I got a job and I've been really busy. In the last few months I've moved into a new flat, my own, and it feels wonderful. I've been earning my own money, spending it on myself, and it's really invigorating. I don't know how to explain it. It's just so new and it feels fantastic. Anyway, I know people are probably reading because they want to know what happened between my dad, Veronica, and me. I went ahead with the lawsuit, but she got legal advice a few days later and said she wanted to settle out of court. As much as I would have liked to drag it out and cause my dad and Veronica a lot of discomfort, I also had financial limitations. So if she was offering it to me easily, I was willing to accept the settlement. In short, I got $30,000 out of this, which is $5,000 more than the value of the bag. And she got community service because at the end of the day, even if I settled with her, she filed a false report. Fortunately, as it was her first and only offense, she came out relatively unscathed, and I'd say she got away without any major consequences apart from the community service she had to do. Because I think the money came out of my father's pocket, not hers. I don't even think she has that kind of capital. Even that handbag was a birthday present from my father. But at least I got something in return, and that was the main objective. Unfortunately, for the last few months, since this incident happened, my father and I have not spoken. I have not blocked him, nor has he blocked me. So he can communicate with me, and I can also communicate with him. But neither of us wants to. The last message I sent him was the one I mentioned in my previous update, where I basically confronted him about his behavior, and he had no defense for it. So he just didn't respond. So far, he hasn't bothered to do so. That's fine, I guess. I don't have much more to say about this. It's reassuring in a way, but sometimes I end up missing my father a lot. Because even after he married Veronica, and I moved away to go to university, we stayed in touch, and he's been such an important part of my life for so long that it's strange to accept that things will never be the same again. Even if we somehow manage to reconcile in the future, I know the relationship will never be the same, and that just feels strange and wrong. Update 4. Hello everyone. It's officially been a year since I last spoke to my father. I don't know what he's been up to. The only time I hear anything about him is when I attend family gatherings. He doesn't even attend, so I haven't even seen him for a long time. It's not surprising that he's distanced himself from everyone else because he was never very close to anyone in the family to begin with. I only keep up appearances out of courtesy, but I'm not very close to these relatives either. However, over the last year I have tried to be present at most family gatherings because since I cut ties with my father, I sometimes feel a little lonely. And there is a limit to what you can share with friends or coworkers. From what I've heard, he and Veronica are still together and are considering adopting at the moment. I found out about this about a week ago at one of my cousin's weddings, and it really shocked me. I didn't know what to think, and after a long time I ended up crying about my current relationship with my father that night after returning home from the wedding. I mean, I guess it makes sense. They want to move on with their lives, but at one point I just wish my father would choose me, his daughter, over Veronica. But in all honesty, as unfair as it may seem, I really hope they can't adopt anyone. Veronica is definitely not fit to be a mother, and I don't even understand how my father agreed to try to adopt a child with her of all people, especially after what she did to me. She obviously felt insecure about me. That's why she wanted to completely eliminate me from my father's life. That's why she went to such extremes, and after all that, he chose to forgive her and make up with her instead of trying to understand my position. I won't lie, it makes me angry and sad every time I think about it, which is why I actively try not to think about my father. But it doesn't help. It doesn't change reality, and it still hurts sometimes. Last week I was really confused by this news, but now that a few days have passed, I'm pretty sure they won't make it. I don't know why, I just have a strong intuition, and I know it won't work out for them. It's not that I don't wish my father well, it's just that I'm being realistic. Sooner or later, he will realize how empty his relationship with Veronica is and what a big mistake he has made. And by then it will be too late to repair his relationship with everyone else. He has made his choices, and he has taken the consequences. So that's that. Update 5. Hi everyone. I never thought I'd be posting updates here after all this time, but here I am. A lot has changed in the last 3 years, and, well, now I'm getting married. My fiancé and I have been together for the last 3 years. I had actually already started dating him when I posted my last update here. It started out as something casual, but over time we realized that we really loved each other, and I guess it worked. So yes, we've been living together for the last year and a half, and he recently proposed to me. It's been a week since then, and a couple of days ago I announced it on all my social networks. Obviously, I was very happy, and a lot of people congratulated me. One of those people who congratulated me and got in touch after a long time, you guessed it, was my father. It was very strange because we hadn't spoken for almost 4 years, so I didn't know how to react. I did hear from some relatives last year that he and Veronica had been through some difficult times and were currently living apart. I also learned that he had developed problems with drinking, which is not surprising because from what I knew, even my grandfather suffered from alcoholism during the last stages of his life. I just never expected my father to succumb to it because he was never a heavy drinker. On several occasions I wanted to get in touch with him because I missed him so much, but then I would remember what had happened. I could never get past the fact that he had chosen Veronica over me, so I never reached out. This time he sent me a message congratulating me, and in the spirit of new beginnings I replied thanking him, but nothing more. I said nothing additional. Then he replied again and said that he had been planning to contact me for a while and confessed that for the last 4 years, he had only been thinking about how I had been right in everything I had said. He told me that he had been extremely selfish and was now paying a heavy price for it. He told me that he and Veronica had separated and were now considering divorce. Of course, he was going to have to pay maintenance because she hadn't worked for a long time and because of his unemployment. Even if it was by choice, he would still have to support her until she decided to remarry or gave it up for whatever reason. But in the meantime, he will have to continue supporting her. He explained to me that things had become very bitter between the two of them in recent years, and he could never really forgive her for what she did. Nor could he forgive himself because he finally realized that it was his own responsibility. But by then I had stopped talking to him, and he was too ashamed to contact me. He later told me that he had told Veronica that he didn't want to adopt a baby with her because he felt she was trying to replace me, which triggered a big argument, the main reason for their separation. He ended the message by congratulating me again, expressing his regret, and explaining that this was why he wanted to get in touch with me. This seemed like the perfect opportunity to give me his blessing for the future and to ask for my forgiveness for everything that had happened. I'm not going to lie, I was deeply moved by that message. So I visited him that same afternoon with my fiancé, and it was clear that he had not been doing well because the house was somewhat neglected, not as well maintained as it used to be, and he himself didn't seem as happy or healthy either. But he was delighted to see me, and we both broke down emotionally as soon as we hugged. We didn't talk much about the past, we didn't even discuss future plans. But we did agree that we both wanted a fresh start. It won't be easy. It will definitely be uncomfortable, and it will require a lot of effort. But as long as we're both willing to give it a go, I think it will work. And with Veronica out of the picture, I think it will be worth it. It took a long time, but I'm glad she finally came to her senses. Now I just hope things improve in the future for both of us.